right. Good. Looks like my camera's up and running. So let's get going. We just to start this week, we just need to do some template updates. We're heading into dimensioning now. So our drawings this week will now start to have dimensions input on them. And so what I've created to help us know how to do that is I've added a new item in resources for this course. This is for our lab class, 1108, CAD 1108. So I made a document in order to know how to format the styles that we need. Essentially, we've done a little bit of this already. We've done some text formatting to even be able to put text on our title blocks. We had to have a text style built. Otherwise, it'd just be using some random default text style. And we did establish some ASME and an ASME text style standard. And so what I have here is beyond that. Let's see, it's going to be under resources for CAD. So under the resources for this course, we have our syllabus plus a textbook that we're not using much anymore. But this one, resources for AutoCAD. So you're probably familiar with some of these that we've worked through. This is the new one though. I kind of input it like the third one down. So I put it before the shortcut, the keyboard shortcut. And then after the keyboard shortcut, they're all just layouts that we'll start using soon, but we're still not using them yet. We're still using our own that we've created. So what we need to know is how to format some more stuff, like the things that are formatable in CAD on the annotate tab or text style, dimension style, leader style, and table style. So I'm going to open up this document. It doesn't have table style populated yet. So this document will grow over time a little bit. And I'll re-upload it with the new one when I do change it. But it should open up this document, which is just a PDF of a step-by-step on what I need to do. So I'm going to have this up on my other screen while I go through this. So it's kind of helpful to have maybe a resource while you're making these changes. And you can have this video too as a resource. So I'll have this up. I'm going to close that and pull up my own copy that I have, which I think I have open. Yeah, I do. Okay, so I'm just going to go through it kind of like start to finish, like page by page here. And I'll go back to my CAD here. So what I'm gonna do is I'll start with one where I haven't formatted any because it doesn't take me long just to build the one that you may already have in yours. So I might just start from and this will be your template file. So I'll start with the inch ones. The document starts with the inch ones. It contains both though. It contains both. Um, it's it's quite a few pages, but it's just because there's a lot of imagery built into it. But we're just doing some styles formatting for text style, dimension style, leader style, table style. It starts with inches, so I think it's gonna do the text style for inches. Then we come down here, which takes like 3 steps. Then we're gonna do dimension style. There's like 9 steps to kind of establish a dimension style and in the inch template. And then, so after step 9 of that, and there's just some imagery that helps you keep track of what we're doing. Then we just got to change the leader style on the inch template, and that takes 5 steps. And then there's no table style that we need to manage yet. So then we can move on to our metric one. I think the next page down should be metric. Yeah, metric, and we'll start with doing the text on metric, which we already have some of that anyway. I think in my videos, I've at least had the one that we've used, and maybe I've even shown that I did do 2 different text styles, planning ahead a little bit. So you may already have them if you've been following along with videos. Your text style creation may already actually be done, but that's like a really fast one to do anyway. And then after that, we need to just do the dimension style for metric. Um, so I would have had to start with the correct DWT format, and we'll go through a 9 step process of picking those dimension styles, and then we do a leader style for metric too. I think it's like the 5 step process at the end is just this leader style for metric. So this is what we need to do. It's pretty much just template updates that we're doing today. So like I said, I'll have this up on my other page so I can just kind of follow it line by line. And so if you have it, I shouldn't. I'm going to try to stay in order of how I've done this, and I'm really starting on a scratch template. You should have already had this done, like early on because our title block needed text, we needed to format it. And so early on, I showed you that there's only two styles default. We have to manage text styles to add some to it. I've already showed you that I usually get to it from here, that dialog box. We're going to create an annotative one. You should have already created one that was 0.125 in text height that's annotative. And sorry, I should have picked this and said new, and then it would have said, what is that? And we called it ASME. I just called it the text height name so I could identify it pretty clearly that it has that text height and it was Arial, and I set it as my current. Then I needed to create a new one too for the larger text size that we use. ASME 0.2 is what it actually is, 0.2 for double the height text for large notes and kind of view headings. We would get to that later, but I create it right now. The first thing we'll use it for is probably some general notes on the main page. So I'm actually going to make my main, I'm going to set current, the kind of the what's used for 90%, 95% of the drawing. So I'm going to close that. What that does is load it here so that I know that, and then I can see that it's showed up as a new. I have four now because I created two new ones. So that's all I need to do for my text creation, which we probably already have done in previous weeks. Then we have not done this. This week is dimensioning. So this is the next one. To even be able to dimension, I have to do some formatting. It's not adequate as default. I have to do some ASME formatting. Um, so let's do that. So I kind of approach it the same way. I can get to the dimension manage style box here, but really I'm going to probably just go like this. We're going to make annotatives only. All of our dimension styles we ever create in this course will be annotative. So I'm going to create a new one. I select that one just to create a new one. And we just have to give it a unique name, right? So I think I just called mine ASME. What did I say? Probably just like inch to decimal. So um, unlike textiles where I might not have that many, I could have a few more than I created. But dimension styles in a drawing for if I was really had a template for you know projected CAD work, I may end up having like 10 different ones, even for our class. And in the real world, I could have double that easily of dimension styles. So this list can get pretty extensive. So they all have to have kind of unique names so I can identify them quick. And so I think I just call this one inch to decimal. Yeah, I call the inch to decimal. It's annotative. It starts with annotative. It's going to be used for all dimensions. I'm going to say continue. And so it's given it a name. Now I got to define the properties of it. So I just work these left to right like we did in class, all across these tabs. So the lines one, it's going to tell me that, after I've given a new name, I need to uh, change the baseline spacing. And this isn't really explicitly shown in this view, but that has to do when you have multiple dimensions pulling from the same point. And so this is going to be 0.25 is our baseline dimensioning that I'm going to change. And then I'm going to change the extend beyond dimension lines to our 1/8 inch, 0.125, and offset from origin, I'm pretty much going to leave. I may have highlighted on the file, but I think that is default, so that's good. And then what I kind of show you on the file is just a couple of images in CAD what those are. Because like I said, some things are not explicitly recognized in the little view window here. But what we just changed, this baseline spacing is this. When I have like multiple dimensions, so here's like an explanation that when you change this, on that annotate tab and on the dimensions palette, there is a little like ruler in between like what looks to be two dimension lines. That is the dim spacing, dimension line spacing, just ribbon menu button. But what it does is it's programming these in our ASME standard, we like to the first dimension for inch templates is the first dimension goes away from the object 3/8 of an inch, which is 0.375. So this initial first spacing is 0.375. That's standard across all sides and views. The first dimension pulled off, so that 0.5 is actually 3/8 of an inch or 0.375 away from the object. And then after that, I kind of can establish this baseline spacing, which is from there on out, we're going to have this nice strategic, nice clean look of keeping the spacing a quarter of an inch, 0.25 of an inch. And I can do that with this quick selection here. I select kind of the base one. So once I establish the one that's 3/8 of an inch away, and I kind of use that as my base, and then I can click it as kind of the source, and then I can click these other dimensions. If I would have pulled them like at some random distance away from the object, I can just quickly select them and have it bundle them a quarter of an inch away from each other as they kind of as they step out away from the object. So that's kind of a baseline spacing overview of what that's actually setting within this dialog box. So that's important. The other thing that we changed was the extend beyond dimension lines, and that's what's going on here. The extension beyond dimension line, this is just another image where we've got a dimension, and from the arrowhead out, this is always designed to be longer. ASME likes this 0.125 extension beyond dimension lines. You'll notice when I'm establishing these distances, even though I'm looking at like modifying an inch template, I kind of put the equivalencies of those in parentheses of the ones that I'm technically not writing in here. But what it is this going to allow me to make sure I'm kind of the same from one, like what we do in the inch one, we're kind of just looking to make the equivalency of those changes to the metric one. So, what I have going on here is that baseline spacing that we changed to 0.25. In our metric template, we're going to change it to 6 millimeter. And that is the equivalence of that. That way I'm really applying the same standard across both templates, I guess. Does that make sense? And the same way with the extend beyond dimension lines, we're going to do an eighth of an inch on our inch template. It'll be 3 millimeters on our metric one. The offset from origin, I haven't spoke about yet, but so what you're seeing when you see these is that these are the equivalent, uh, the metric and standard equivalency. So when I get into those different templates on those different inch to metric, I just want to make sure I'm kind of doing the same number changes. Okay. That's my little side note on that. And that's why I'm explaining that that's a baseline. We explained what a baseline dimension was. Oh, I probably still need that document because it actually has um, the extend beyond dimension lines we changed to 0.125. And then that's what that is in reality. That's what that dimension is. And then the other thing we changed was the offset from origin in a CAD. And that is just how far away the extension lines kind of start to begin away from the object. We like that break off point. So for most general dimensions, they'll just kind of stand off the object so that we don't still have like this overlapping congested corner. I mean, we do get it from time, but every time that I can snap it away, I will use that offset from origin at a 16th. I think maybe it rounds itself up to 0.063, and that's fine. But that's the offset from origin that we're looking at, that distance between where the object begins and the relationship to my dimension extension line is. So we just changed that and drag that over there. Those are the three kind of descriptors of what we just changed on that lines tab. Now that's all we would change on this, and we go over to symbols and arrows. And according to my document, we need to change we just need to keep everything closed and filled. That's pretty much ASME standard. There are different options for terminating the dimensions. We're going to keep ours closed filled. The arrow size needs to be changed to a 0.125 by ASME standard. So, and that's just the width of the arrow, and the length is 3 times that long. So it has that relationship that it's 3/8 of an inch long, or an eighth of an inch, or sorry, and an eighth of an inch wide. 3-to-1 ratio is what we need to memorize and remember on our arrows. And then I changed that there's no center marks. The break size, I kept it as default. And the break size is actually not explicitly shown on here either. I have one image, but maybe I didn't put it in until I think it might be because I have to change it on the metric template. Otherwise, it's just an eighth of an inch default, which would be 3 millimeter. I think that I don't describe what that actually is because I didn't change it here. But if you'll see, if I scroll down just a minute, just so I can like I like these CAD pictures where I pulled to let you know what you just changed there. Like I said, this is a dimension break size. Is that we have there is a dimension break button. It's on the It's on the, I don't know if I highlighted it here. Oh, should I? This should have had an image maybe where it's right by that, the dimension spacing, the baseline spacing. There's a quick button on the ribbon menu for this dimension to break a dimension like this, like to break an extension line. And I think we can decide how big that break is. I believe that is what that is formatting. So it's kind of a non-critical. I think I even say that, on the document. It's maybe not super critical is what I wrote. Um, I think so. It's on the symbols and arrows. I didn't even change it here. That by default, I just left it. So I didn't change anything over here on this side of the symbols and arrows tab. So I'm okay with just changing the arrow size. Now I'm going to go to text and the center marks that I have none. Now I'm going to go to text, and it's really critical that I would have created text to be able to load text as a dimension into the dimension style, right? So that's why I have to build the text over there first before I ever am really inputting a dimension style. So otherwise, I wouldn't even have any options under this text style. And that's the critical nature here is I want my text, whether it's dimensioning text and descriptions to match kind of what anything else I'd write on the document. So I already have these two. I have these are my four, my two defaults plus the two I created text styles, and I'm just going to choose that most of my dimensions, 99% of the time are going to be driven by that same main text style. And I don't have to change anything here. It already takes control of this. It's pre-programmed from that style. Text placement. So this is all stays. The offset from dimension line, I believe I change. So I think I just make the offset from dimension line 16th or point 1.5 millimeters, but it's in this case it's 0.0625 because I made an inch template. So I call that 1/16th of an inch. Offset from dimension line. This is super non-critical, and I do say it's not super critical. There's nothing in ASME that would maybe tell me what that has to be, but it does have to be horizontally aligned. And I don't know if I might show, yeah, the offset from dimension line. I give a little image of it right here, right? Offset from dimension line. It's just the space that the dimension line is giving my text. And so I guess you can actually run that line right to your text. So there's no clearance. This is just a 16th of an inch clearance or 1.5 millimeter, kind of a small clearance, kind of like the same way we would offset. It's like it ends up being the same distance here between the extension and the object. I kind of am doing that here. But like non-critical, this will work. Um, so got that set. I did change that. And it's horizontal. I think it's already default horizontal. That's all on this panel. Then I go to fit. And I didn't change anything here. Everything is just preloaded. Uh, I can manually fit mine if they don't fit, if they don't auto-populate fitted correctly. Sometimes I have to manually move my fit, but it's nothing that I pre-program here for our class. This one, primary units, is another. So this is like step 7 and where I'm at now, primary units. We just need to change a few things. We are in decimals. Our precision, just I think auto is 4 decimal places, which will be a big it'll be a large number from sometimes relatively small spaces to fit. So this is really the reason why I'm actually, and it's dropping the accuracy of the dimension that we're putting. I'm mostly doing this because our objects that we draw are pretty small, and the dimensions do have a hard time fitting if they're always out to 4 decimal places. So later when we talk about tolerances, we have to up the accuracy of our prints beyond 2 decimal places. So that's going to become a later thing. This will be a great initial, for several weeks be our dimension style that we want. But we will add more, of course, We'll be into a new template by then, though, so we don't have to really come back to this one. This one will just kind of be this real simple format. We're going to use a period. I think I just leave the round off of this. I don't think I did only change that. I need to get rid of the 0 leading. This is technically not ASME standard to have a 0 carry in front of a decimal. So I'm going to suppress that. So it just would look like this image does show well that I see that 0 and this particular radius dimension has a 0 in front of it unless I checked this. So then you can see that it omits it. And this is ASME standard to omit that. I also like a little more precision on my degrees rather than just letting it round to the nearest whole degree. So I actually increased just this to match the precision of my linear measurements. My angular measurements are carrying the same decimal places. Of course, ASME allows me to be however precise I need to be for my print, so they don't control my precision per se. I just have to determine what is best as a drafter and maybe with my engineering department. But I also, I think, suppress the leading zeros for those carrying, if I was carrying a number that was less than 1 degree, maybe I would have that omit it like it would on this radius. So with that being said, that is all for primary units. So on to step 8 is the alternate units, which just says I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to make anything. Just make sure this isn't changed, or else you have to program what the alternate units are. And so that's dual dimensioning, maybe is what that would be called. We're going to just not do dual dimensioning right now. So no changes on alternate. And then for step 8, I'm doing no tolerances here. But this is when I come to this page later in a few weeks, we will be making new dimension styles. And this is probably what we're probably starting with those other baselines, maybe increasing the precision to multiple more decimal places, maybe out to 4. And then also maybe having the dimension include some tolerances within it. So we'll come back to this, but at this point, we don't need it. So we can just say OK. And then I'm going to say set current on that one that I made. This is the only one I'm making on these. I've got my two defaults and my new one that I created. I'm going to set current. I'm going to close that. And that is now ready to dimension. The last thing I do on my dimensions palette is um, I change this from using current. Like this is definitely the dimension style that I wanted loaded and kind of want these on my just kind of to already be loaded on my template. I'm going to save my template with these already as set at the current style. But I don't want to use the current layer. That just means whatever layer I'm on here. Of course, mine doesn't have any layers, but you have like 15 or something layers. Um, I do not want that to be left there. I can save myself from pain from always drawing my dimensions on the wrong layers if I just set this to dimension. So like I'll show you my actual one that's been done that has layers. Here's my inch template. Everything's kind of preloaded. Here's that area where, I can choose which layer to always have my dimensions. And of course, I'm going to always have them on the dimension layer. So I generally, once I choose this, I never have to worry about what layer I'm drawing on. But if I go to the annotate tab, it knows that I'm driving any dimensioning to the dimension layer. So I love that. I always set this on my template this way. Then I move over. I think then we're ready to just say the next step in the document is to leader style for the inch template. And so that's the next palette, leaders. Tables would be the final one, but we're just going to omit doing any table setup. But I would have to format it like I'm doing. Mostly it's the text style that I need to put in the table. But so for a leaders one, I'm going to go to the drawing where I don't have anything yet. You'll notice if you have your leaders and you go to your multi-leader style, like it's going to open this dialog box. I usually get to it right here. And I open that same dialog box, set my 2 default standards. Of course, I'm going to do an annotative one, so it'll adjust. So my notes will stay legible when I rescale my drawing. So I'm gonna say a new one that's based off that annotative one. Starts with annotative. I got to give it a unique name. Always ASM or ASME. I think I did call this one Inch Leader. Just some unique name where I could pick this out of a list if all I am is reading this off of a file list. I'm just gonna say continue. It starts with annotative. Continue, and it's going to let me to go ahead and go through 3 tabs from left to right to format this thing a little bit. So the leader format, the initial one, what does it say? I give it a unique name. I just need to change the arrowhead size. This is just the default size on. So I need to change this to ASME standard, which is 0.125, like we did for our dimensions. Close filled is great. Leader break size is left at 1.125. Do I actually show in my document where that leader break is? I don't think so, but it has to do with how that dimension break was. So I will go back. I didn't show it here, but that leader break is I think going to be kind of like the dimension break, which I had an image of right here somewhere. Baseline offset from dimensioning. Somewhere I put a leader break. I thought I put an image of one. It might be just further down in it might be in the metrics section. Well, I thought I showed it on the right there. A dimension break size is where it's breaking across. The leader will break similar, like I can have that break across when it's crossing dimensions or extension lines. I can kind of uh, break that out. Just kind of instead of having a crossing pattern, I actually get like a little uh, such a small detail, but it looks nice on my drawings to have my break. My dimensions have breaks in them, and sometimes my leaders will have breaks in them. So that's what's going on here. I just set it at the same size. So I'm going to say okay. Nope, I'm not going to say okay. I got to go over to leader structure yet. I didn't change anything else. So the leader structure, we'll find where I was now. I think I'm about on like step for the leaders. It's a step. It's like a 5-step process. I think I'm on step 4. So the leader structure tab, I need to set the landing distance. That's just how long this is. The book, there's really a room for there's a room for I would say ASME isn't holding you to a super hard standard here. They're saying it can be 0.125 to it can be anywhere from an eighth of an inch to a quarter of an inch. So 0.125 through to 0.25. So I just set mine at 0.125, the low side. And you'll see this leader will the shoulder length will change right here, right there. But it could be as long as a quarter inch or not. I just set it at the lower setting, eighth of an inch or 3 millimeter. It's annotative. I just leave the maximum leader points at 2, and then I go over to the content tab. And what do we change here? It's like step 5 on my leader formatting. This is the main one. I need to make sure that I have obviously have had to have the preloaded text style, and I do have them. There they are. There's my 0.125. That'll pretty much be the way I have all my leaders with the normal text size. Keep horizontal. Yes, it's going to be a horizontal attachment. And there are rare occasions when I do a vertical attachment, but usually I make a spot change in my drawing. I have control over that on the properties palette all the time or the properties panel. Another reason why I keep that up all the time is because I usually have access to all of these parameters in the properties panel. I don't like to individually change a lot of those. I like to have a styles format that I just choose for the most part, that all these things are already picked, but I can fudge one here or there if I need a vertical attachment because it's not that ASME doesn't allow you to. It's just that primarily we're going to have horizontal attachments unless there's a good reason for one. But I do like them to have the text be the middle of the top line, I guess it's going to say middle of text. Well, I could argue that it should maybe be middle of text. It's not going to affect us too much if it says middle of top line. It's just going to be that the rest of the line it'll always be centered on the top line of a multi-line text. It's probably if I did have multi-line, it probably should be middle of text, but so just leave that right there. But we may have to change this. And then the landing gap is just the gap between the end of the shoulder and the D for default here, just that. And I think it kind of matches super non-critical here too, but I just made it match what I did with the dimension style where it had the dimension and the dimension line, and I just created the gap of 16th of an inch between the two, so it's pretty tight. I'm drawing it a little bit closer. The shoulder gets a little closer to the text. That's all I'm doing. So I'm going to say okay on this. I'm going to choose that one and say set current, and I'm going to be close. So yeah, as I've gone through my thing now, and I've seen that the middle of top line works when it's only a single line of text on a leader. If you had multiple lines of leader, maybe it needs to be middle of text, but we'll deal with that if we get there. So let's do the same changes on a metric template. So let me log in, or sorry, let me go to my start menu and open up like if I would have started with a template that it was a metric template. So this is it. Of course, you probably already have some text styles created because you should have had an annotative, new annotative one that we probably called an ASME 3 millimeter and said okay, and we set that paper height at 3 like that, and that's all we changed, and it was Arial. And then I might do a new one with that as the base and call it ASME 6 millimeter, the double standard, no, the double size text here. Say okay, set that one to 6 like that. Yeah, so I've got a 3 and a 6 size. That's the only thing I really changed. I'm going to set current my 3 millimeter one, close it. So that's the main one that I use for most text. Then we can now get on to creating a dimension style. So let's do that. This is how I always know if you've created from a metric template or not. We actually have an ISO-25 style that is a default available for a metric template. But I'm still going to just choose annotative. In modern day, our the metric is not as it's not as dissimilar from inch as maybe it used to be. I think they kind of combine those standards. So let's do a new one here and call it. I think I just call the ASME metric two decimal, like that. It's annotative. Start with annotative. It's for all dimensions. Continue. This is the only one we really need to build. I go from left to right, so I tend to go clear over here to the lines. So if I'm just work down through we've created our text for 3 steps of that. Then we move on to dimension styles for metric templates. 9 steps, kind of matches the same steps that we did. I've got a new name created already. And I'm on step 3 of creating this. So I'm on the lines tab. And what I need to change is the baseline spacing. This is a little bit tight here. We need to widen this out to 6 millimeters, which is the equivalent of 0.25 millimeters. And that's how far apart multiple dimensions will be from each other after that first dimension is placed. In this case, on a metric template, 10 millimeters away. So but then thereafter it's 6 millimeters for every dimension away from itself. And those are minimums. They sometimes I have to bump those out wider if I get a little bit of crowding going on. And then the last thing I need to change maybe is over here. I got to change a couple things, but um, yeah, extend beyond dimension lines. It should be 8 1/8 of an inch there. It should be 3. So that extension line should extend about 3 millimeters past the dimension line. And then the offset from origin, that's a 5/8 offset from, or that's 0.625, sorry. That's 0.625 of 1 millimeter. And we actually just want it to be 1.5. So a little bit further away, which is the equivalency of 1/16 of an inch, like our inch drawings had. So we're kind of using the millimeter equivalency here so that it's not dissimilar to our inch one. So that's everything on lines. And I'll move over to this. Same here. Arrow size needs to be, I think of an 1/8 inch, is standard in inches, and an 1/8 inch equals 3 millimeter in metric. So it's got to be 3, still a 3-to-1 ratio on the actual arrow itself. It's going to have no center marks associated with it. The dimension break size is not critical. It's that break in the line when we cross each other. So I think I just set this to 3 as well. Definitely not like a super critical thing, but I just match it. It's easy to match those two. Nothing else going on here that we need to worry about. We talked about the dimension break size and what that is, kind of like the leader break size. Okay, so then we go to the text box, and we should have had our preloaded. The normal size text will be 3 millimeters. So that's what my dimensions are primarily going to be. Um, Above, centered, right. Oh yeah, offset from dimension line. It's just going to be when the dimension fits in between. I don't like this style. I haven't fixed it yet anyway, but when the dimension's in between, this is the one that the dimension line hits the text. We can draw that into like 1.5. So we're making that a little bit larger than its default is. That's the when I actually, if I had a dimension in between, that's the distance between that line and where it hits the text. I do want horizontal, like that used to be acceptable, but we've gone to metric drawings that are also red, kind of how they're easy to read without turning my head, even though in architectural you'll do that. Here we'll just go to make our dimensions easy to read like a book. And that's it for text. And then we're on to step 6, where we don't make any fit changes, leave it as it is. And we jump over to primary units for step 7. And I do have to make some changes here, right? I like the precision at 2 decimal places. I think inches is default to 4 decimal places. Metric templates are default to 2. So I just don't have to change that. But I think I discussed this in class that the international symbol for a decimal is comma, and so that's why it's preloaded as comma being and that's why these dimensions look like they have a comma in them. That's pretty standard for international decimal. we're going to go ahead and change that to kind of what we recognize more. And it's sometimes it's out of confusion, but I would do this for my dual units in industry when I had dual dimensioning going on. I would have periods on both of my dimensions. So this is not a normal thing to change. Uh, International ASME standard might tell you to keep the comma, but we're kind of changing this. Uh, Maybe that's a loose standard. The only other thing it's already preloaded to get rid of trailing zeros, which is what we want. And the only thing I did is kick up my decimal degrees to be a couple of decimal places as well, like I did, and then get rid of the trailing zeros there. Which is kind of funny. It will get rid of decimals in this case. Um, if they don't apply. And I tend to think I could probably toggle that on for my inch drawings as well and not just always have it carry a bunch of zeros, but I could get rid of them. But it's actually, I'm going to leave it like this. I think this is correct. Trailing, trailing. The inch one has leading, leading. So that's number 7. Number 8 is just that we don't change anything else on alternate units. Keep that off. And we don't change anything on tolerances. So 8 and 9, it kind of ends the same. This is the dimension style that I'm going to set current and close. And so now I've got it. Last thing here, of course, is that I want to toggle this onto my my dimensions layer though. Just always have dimensions layered. And so on my inch, if I go to my actual metric one where I've done all this work, you can see that on my dimensions tab, I've toggled that dimensions will be the layer where those exist, no matter what layer I'm on. Over on the home tab, always be dimensions. And then the last thing we need to do is do a multi-leader. So it's a 5-step process for the leader and make it match essentially kind of what we did in the inches formatting. So I'm going to go over here to a new leader style. It needs to be annotative. It's got to have a unique name. I think I just said anything but ASME. Just pound that ASME term into your head. Metric. It's funny. We have to have a baseline to teach from, so we use ASME. You'll go to a company and you'll be like, "Well, ASME says this," and the company might be like, "We don't care. We just do this." So just because you know a standard doesn't mean you can make someone else follow the standard. It's just that maybe it's like you know better. There is a standard out there. It's always better if we have some standards to work from, so that all of our drafters are kind of working from the same baseline. That's what the idea of the template is, anyway, right? Kind of get us all so our works look uniform. And I'm gonna say continue. So I've got a new name. And it goes right into a 3-tabbed dialog box with the leader format being what? Just that I need to change the arrowhead size. Default for whatever reason on metric is 4. I need it to be 3. That's 0.125. So I want the text width to only be 3 millimeter. And then the leader break size is not real critical. I just make it match this. So I just put 3. This is not something I would notice. It's only if we do that leader break where we're crossing lines. And so it's not a huge deal. And the last or step 4 is going to be leader structure. And the landing distance is quite large. It's an 8 millimeter landing distance or shoulder of the leader. And I'm just going to set this to 3, which is an eighth of an inch. That's where it gave us some leeway from 3 to 6 millimeter or an eighth inch to a quarter inch kind of. So this is there, this is flexible, but I'm just putting it at 3. And then on the content tab, last thing is where really I have to have my type of text loaded, which I do, 3 millimeter. Keep it horizontal. The text type's already set from the text style. Horizontal attachment again. Middle of top line, I'll leave that. It's also debatable whether it should be middle of text. In case my text has multiple lines, I may change that. Landing gap I set at a little bit smaller, like the 16th of an inch, which is actually 1.5 millimeter, like that. And this is it. This is the metric leader that I would set as current, close, and I would have these things just pre-populated, minus I don't have a layer here to change that to dimensioning layer, but I'd have this set as my save, like I have here. Here's my actual metric one. See, I have them set, metric leader, metric 2 decimal place, 3, perfect. I save my template as a .dwt, then I can feel good about closing this with those formats. Same with my inch one, I just kind of do a pre-check. That's the standard text height for most things. That's the kind of our default 2 decimal system dimension style with our inch leader. And I would just make sure I save that as my DWT. Don't let it switch to a DWG on you. Keep this as formatting for your DWT and then close those up. And that's the end. So we'll start drawing dimensioning now.